The TCL QM8K is $978 on Amazon today. In 8 weeks, it will not be. The same panel is heading to $1,125 at the low end, a $147 increase, and that is before the second and third forces hit. Samsung's president said it on the record in April 2026. Prices are going up even as we speak, and they will have to reprice. That is not a prediction. That is the largest TV manufacturer on the planet confirming what is already inside the supply chain of every television on this list. There are 3 reasons prices are moving right now, and only one of them is the World Cup. The other 2 are already locked in regardless of sports calendars, and most buyers have no idea they exist. Subscribe before the second force. Next week, I will compare the QM8K, the Hisense U7SG, and the Samsung QN90F head-to-head at the same price point, so you know exactly which one to buy before the window closes. Subscribe now. Waiting to buy or shopping right now? Drop it in the comments. Stay, because the first force is the one nobody is connecting to their TV purchase, and it is the reason the price increase is already baked in, regardless of what happens with tariffs or the World Cup. TV memory prices rose over 40% in the first quarter of 2026 alone. Omdia's TV cost and price forecast model projects another 20% increase in the second quarter. The reason is AI. The companies building large language models and cloud infrastructure are consuming global RAM supply at a rate the market has never seen before. The memory chips that go into a server farm and those that run a smart TV's operating system are sourced from the same manufacturers: Samsung Semiconductor, SK Hynix, and Micron. When AI demand absorbs that supply at scale, prices rise for everyone downstream, including the buyer who just wants a panel for the living room wall. Smart TVs depend on RAM to operate. The Google TV platform on the TCL QM8K, the operating system on the Hisense U7SG, and the Samsung Vision AI features on the QN90F. All of them require memory to function. The more capable the smart platform, the more memory it requires. As AI-enhanced features are embedded into lower-tier televisions, the RAM dependency grows. Those cost increases do not stay at the factory. They move through the supply chain and land at retail. Samsung's co-CEO said at CES 2026 that no company is immune to this cost pressure. Not a brand-specific warning, an industry-wide statement from the executive who understands global display manufacturing costs better than almost anyone outside a laboratory. When that person says no company is immune, take it literally. The buyer who dismisses that statement is the buyer paying more for the same television in the fourth quarter. The second force is tariffs, and it lands hardest on the exact brands that made quality mini LED panels accessible for under $1,000. TCL and Hisense manufacture in China. Samsung's primary manufacturing is in Vietnam. LG manufactures in Korea and Mexico. That geography difference is the difference between facing a 15 to 23% retail price increase in the second half of 2026 and a more modest impact. TrendForce published this projection in their 2026 Global TV Market Analysis: 15 to 23%. On the $949 Hisense U7SG, that is $142 to $218 added to the sticker price. On the $978 TCL QM8K, it is $147 to $225. These are not fringe brands. RTings, Tom's Guide, and CNET have ranked these models among their top value picks for 3 consecutive years. They are the reason a buyer could walk into Best Buy in 2024 and leave with a legitimate mini LED panel for $800. The brands that democratized picture quality are facing the steepest repricing in the next 2 quarters. The buyer waiting for prices to fall after the World Cup on a TCL or Hisense is waiting for an event that will not happen. Tariff increases land regardless of sports calendars. The repricing is not speculative. The cost increases are already in the supply chain and are being calculated into the pricing models the brands will implement in July and August. Before the verdict, the one retailer move that happens every World Cup year that most buyers never see coming. The third force is the World Cup, and the timing is something retailers are not advertising, because advertising it would cost them margin. The FIFA World Cup runs from June 11th to July 19th, 2026, across 16 cities in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. 40 days of major tournament football in American and Canadian living rooms, and every major retailer knows that TV demand spikes hard in the 2 weeks before opening day and holds through the quarterfinals. Right now, retailers are in the post-Memorial Day clearance window. They are moving inventory to create floor space for new arrivals. The discounts that exist today are clearance discounts, not promotional discounts, structurally different. A promotional discount is a margin decision. The retailer drops the price to move units faster than they would at full price. A clearance discount happens because the retailer needs the physical space. The unit leaves the floor regardless of the margin. When the clearance inventory is gone, those prices do not return. The next unit to fill that floor space arrives at a higher cost basis. Our teams tracked TV pricing through the last 3 major sports demand events: the 2022 World Cup, the 2023 Super Bowl cycle, and the 2024 Olympics. The pattern repeated across all 3. Models in active promotion in the 8 weeks before the event held discounted prices through the opening week, then drifted upward as stock pressure increased. By the quarterfinal stage of the 2022 World Cup, clearance pricing on 65-inch panels in the under $1,000 bracket was essentially gone. The buyers who waited for post-tournament deals found that manufacturers had already used the demand spike to restock at the higher prices the tariff increases would require. The patient buyer and the impatient buyer both paid the higher price. The impatient buyer watched the entire tournament on their new television. The current clearance window closes June 11th, 14 days from today. The verdict. 4 models at confirmed prices. Which one to buy, which size, and which retailer gives you the best deal on each. I'm going to show you exactly which retailer to use for each. The difference is worth more than you think. The TCL QM8K at $978 on Amazon. The most time-sensitive buy on this list. The QM8K is a QD mini LED panel with over 5,000 local dimming zones in the 65-inch model. Our teams tested it against panels priced above $1,700 and found it matched OLED-level black uniformity in darkroom conditions. CNET gave it an Editor's Choice Award. Their senior editor described the color and contrast as rivaling displays at twice the price. That is not a generic compliment. That is a specific technical assessment from a publication that reviews several hundred televisions per year. At $978 for the 65-inch, Amazon is the correct retailer. Best Buy has the same model at $999, $21 more for an identical box. At Costco, watch the model number. The Costco floor version carries a different model number suffix than the retail version on Amazon. TCL has used this suffix system in previous model years to differentiate Costco-exclusive configurations, in which the Costco unit shipped with fewer local dimming zones than the retail model. Fewer zones mean less precise backlight control and more visible blooming, light halos around bright objects on dark backgrounds. Confirm the exact model number on the Costco unit against the Amazon listing before purchasing. The Amazon version is 65QM8K. That is the reviewed model. For the 75-inch, Amazon has the QM8K at approximately $1,498. If the seating distance in your room exceeds 12 feet from the screen, the 75-inch is the correct size. Picture quality is identical to the 65. The additional screen area improves viewing angles in wide rooms, and the tariff-driven price increase applies equally to both sizes. There is no advantage to buying down a size to manage the price risk. The historical floor for the QM8K 65-inch was $997 in March 2026. The current $978 price is the lowest confirmed point on record. After the World Cup demand cycle absorbs current stock at this price level, TrendForce's projection suggests the floor rises by 15 to 23%, from $978 to $1,125 at the low end. That is a $147 increase on the best valued mini LED panel on the market today. There is no scenario where waiting improves the TCL purchase. The Hisense U7SG at $949 on Amazon. For the buyer with a bright room, this is not the second model on the list. It is the first choice. Tings measured the U7SG at up to 3,000 nits peak brightness. That number is the one that matters when the room has windows or overhead lighting that cannot be eliminated. At 3,000 nits, the U7SG holds contrast and color fidelity in conditions where panels with lower peak brightness wash out visibly. If you are watching sports on Sunday afternoon with light coming through the blinds, the Hisense outperforms the TCL in that specific condition. Brightness over zone count. Dark room at night, TCL wins. Bright room with ambient light, Hisense wins. The tariff exposure for the U7SG is identical to that of the QM8K. Both Chinese manufactured, both face the same 15 to 23% retail price increase in the second half of 2026. At $949, the dollar impact of that increase is $142 to $218. The U7SG is the 2026 model. It launched at $1,499 and has already dropped to $949. That drop happened before the tariff increases land. When they do, the floor rises. One setting must be changed before watching anything on the U7SG. It ships in a picture mode calibrated for showroom brightness that compresses black detail in dark scenes. Tings documented this out-of-box problem on every recent Hisense model. Go to Settings, then Picture, and switch to Cinema Home mode. That recovers the shadow detail and color accuracy that the default mode compresses. The native 165Hz panel and 4 HDMI 2.1 ports are also reasons this model earns its place on a World Cup list. 4 ports mean every console and streaming device connects without swapping cables. Amazon at $949. Best Buy has it at the same price. Check both on the day of purchase. Parity pricing has held on this model, but promotional windows move quickly. The Samsung QN90F at $1,599. The model with the lowest urgency on this list, and for certain buyers, the most important feature it has. Samsung manufactures in Vietnam. The tariff structure that threatens TCL and Hisense pricing does not apply to the QN90F to the same severity. For the buyer who needs 60 to 90 days before making a purchase decision, a bonus arriving, a home move, a room renovation completing, the QN90F is the model where waiting incurs the lowest financial cost. That structural tariff advantage is real, and it matters to the buyer who cannot act within a 14-day window. What Hi-Fi gave it 5 stars. The glare-free panel coating is the specification that sets the QN90F apart for one-room condition. Ambient light that cannot be controlled. Windows opposite the screen, overhead lighting that cannot be dimmed, and a room where blackout is not achievable. Tom's Guide tested the QN90F alongside panels without the coating in identical lighting conditions. Samsung maintained contrast and color accuracy at light levels where competing panels visibly degraded. Measurable on equipment. It affects every viewing session in that room. The Dolby Vision limitation applies here. Samsung does not support it. Netflix, Disney Plus, and Apple TV Plus default to Dolby Vision when available. On a Samsung, those services deliver HDR10 instead, a technically inferior format. For a buyer whose primary use is streaming on those three platforms, that is a nightly difference in maximum picture quality. For a buyer who uses a 4K Blu-ray player or a gaming console that controls the HDR output at the source, the limitation matters less. Know which buyer you are before you choose the QN90F. The size question matters more on the QN90F than on the mini LED models in this list, because Samsung's glare-free coating performs differently at different viewing angles on larger screens. At 65 inches, the glare-free coating delivers its full benefit across the entire panel. At 75 inches, the off-angle performance starts to introduce some uniformity differences under ambient light conditions, as Artings documented in their review. If you are buying the QN90F specifically for a bright room, the 65-inch is the safer choice. If the room is large enough to justify the 75, test the off-angle view before purchasing. At Costco, the QN90F is available. Confirm the model number against the Samsung.com listing before purchase. The same Costco exclusivity risk that applies to the QM8K applies here. At Best Buy, invoke the price match policy against Amazon's $1,599 listing before checkout. Best Buy's policy covers Amazon as an eligible competitor. State the Amazon price at the register. That is the number to use. The LG C5 at $1,397 at Best Buy. This is what OLED does that no backlit panel in this comparison can replicate. TechRadar gave the C5 5 stars and named it the best television of 2026. The Alpha 9 AI processor Gen 8 handles upscaling of streaming and broadcast content more aggressively than any processor in this comparison. In a dark room, blackout conditions, evening viewing, content where shadow detail and black levels define the experience, the C5 delivers a picture that the QM8K and the U7SG cannot match, regardless of zone count. OLED pixel-level control of black is a structural difference in display technology. No backlit panel achieves it. 5,000 zones are closer than 200 zones. It is not the same thing. The size decision on the C5 has a specific financial wrinkle. The 65-inch C5 at $1,397 at Best Buy represents the current best value OLED entry point in 2026. The 77-inch version sits at approximately $2,200. That is an $800 jump for 12 additional inches of screen. For comparison, the TCL QM8K 75-inch is $1,498. If room size is the primary decision driver, the QM8K at the larger size beats the C5 at the smaller size on pure value. If picture quality in a dark room is the primary driver, the C5 65-inch at $1,397 delivers something the QM8K cannot at any size. The burn-in concern is real, but significantly overstated for typical viewing habits. Static elements, channel logos, news tickers, score overlays, these carry a burn-in risk on OLED panels when left at high brightness for extended periods. For the viewer who watches varied content and does not leave a static image on screen for hours, the C5's risk profile is manageable. LG's pixel refresh technology in the C5 addresses the wear patterns that created burn-in issues in older OLED panels. The buyer who uses the television to display a static image for 12 hours is the buyer who should avoid OLED. Everyone else is managing an overstated risk. The C5 is not the urgency buy. LG manufactures in Korea. The Chinese brand tariff multiplier does not apply. The RAM shortage affects LG as much as every other manufacturer, and those cost pressures will be reflected in retail pricing. But the 15 to 23% increase projected for Chinese brands is not the same exposure for the C5. Amazon has the LG C6, the 2026 model, at $1,999. The C5 at $1,397 at Best Buy is the correct choice between the two. The performance difference in real living room conditions on standard streaming and sports content is not worth $600. The C6 adds capabilities that matter in technical edge cases. For the buyer watching Netflix and live sports in the evening, those improvements are not visible. Buy the C5 while that gap exists. It will compress as the C5 approaches the end of the production cycle. Which of these four models is closest to what you are currently considering? Drop the name in the comments. 3 forces, 1 window. The RAM shortage is baked into the manufacturing costs of every television on this list today. The tariff increases on Chinese manufactured brands are confirmed. The timeline is the second half of 2026, and the percentage range is 15 to 23%. TCL and Hisense carry that exposure. The two brands most buyers in this audience are actively deciding between. The World Cup demand cycle absorbs clearance inventory starting June 11th, 14 days. The TCL QM8K at $978 on Amazon and the Hisense U7SG at $949 carry the highest price risk between now and September. Act on either of those before June 11th. The Samsung QN90F at $1,599 has lower tariff exposure, but is still subject to the RAM cost increases that affect every manufacturer in the industry. The LG C5 at $1,397 at Best Buy is the least urgency-driven purchase on this list. It is not immune to the cost pressures moving the entire market upward, and the $600 gap between the C5 and the C6 will not last indefinitely. Every model is linked in the description using Amazon affiliate links at no extra cost to you, and that is how this research stays funded. Subscribe before the next video. I put the QM8K, the U7SG, and the QN90F head-to-head in every condition that matters: dark room, bright room, sports, and gaming. One of them has a Costco exclusive version with a different panel spec than the model the reviews tested. Watch it before you walk into any store.